Hello and welcome once again to Jacob's Toys. Please do like, share, subscribe and all of those things. All support to the channel is very much appreciated. And this video is a little bit different because I'm in my garden and I'm just going to give you a very brief, very short introduction to light painting and action figure photography. Now this is essentially a way of achieving an effect within the camera without using things like Photoshop and stuff. So you can use it for lights, you can use it for fire, you can use it for things like sparklers like I am in this picture. But it's a fun technique to do, and if you have a professional camera, it doesn't matter what grade it is or how expensive it is, if you have a professional camera then you can actually do this by playing around with a few of the settings. We'll go into what those settings are in a little bit, but I just wanted to show you very quickly what I'm doing to achieve the look that I achieve. Now I'm definitely not a master at this technique, but I do enjoy doing it, so have a play yourself and let me know how you get on. Now I did 3 photos in this particular setup. I did one with the 3 Marvel Legends Spider-Man figures from No Way Home. I did another with the Hot Toys No Way Home Doctor Strange, and also played around with some lights and did some with the Marvel Legends Loki and Sylvie. So let's have a look at the Spider-Man shot. So here are the 3 figures. Now the first thing to do is obviously get them into the correct pose that you want. Now you have got to be a bit careful outside because obviously there's the elements, and it was a little bit windy when I was doing it, so I used a little bit of blue tack to kind of make sure that these guys stayed in position, because when you're playing around with the shutter speed and stuff, the slightest bit of movement can create a blur in your image, so you really have to make sure that they are solid and in place. Now the first thing is ISO. This is your camera's sensitivity to light. A lower ISO means less sensitivity and a higher ISO means higher sensitivity. I tend to find that every setup I need to have a little play around with this to see what the right balance is, but for this particular setup with the amount of light that you can see in the picture, my ISO was at about 100. The next thing is aperture. It's quite good to have a wide aperture. Now the aperture on a camera is to do with the amount of light that's let in, so a smaller aperture lets in less light and a larger aperture lets in more light, so it's just another part of the camera to play around with in regards to how much light is coming into that image. And the last thing is the shutter speed. Now essentially the shutter speed is the amount of time that the shutter is open, so if you have it open for a long time, it's allowing you to kind of move things around, and that's where you'll get a blurred image if something moves while the shutter is open. But in the context of light painting, obviously with like a sparkler for example, like you just saw with me making the circles, having the shutter open for a longer period of time means that the camera is capturing all of those light trails. So where you're doing like a circle, it's capturing all of those parts of the circle. Again, you have to have a play around with this just to make sure that you get the right kind of settings, but essentially what you're trying to get now is an ISO that has a lower value, a wider aperture and a longer shutter speed. And then what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to capture the light trails, if you like, from either the sparklers, the flames from fire, or if you're using laser pens or even just kind of spotlights or coloured lights, it creates a cool effect. Now my one tip here is if you are having a play around, make sure that you have enough sparklers so that you can do a handful of test runs and just check that you can get those settings at the right speed, because you do have to have a little bit of a play around. So just to show you this one for example, I've got the shutter speed right because it's captured the circle of the sparkler, but the light balance is a little bit off. So then I had a later play and I made it a lot darker. So I was going to keep this setting and then just add some extra light at the front. Now again, if you're adding additional light, you need to be careful because even the slightest bit of extra light will change the balance. So you need to make sure that you're really having a play around. Once I got the settings correct on the camera, obviously that's where I then went in and set these figures up in place. This is a diorama base that I made a little while ago and I just thought it worked out quite well. So having the 2 older Spider-Men either side of Tom Holland's Spider-Man allows me to put 2 like portals, if you like, either side of them. Here's the additional light I put in front, and then if we have a look on the camera, here is the image captured on the camera. So to just once again show you what I did, I lit the sparkler, made sure that I got these longer sparklers so that I had more time to play around. I set my camera on a 10-second timer, went round and stood behind, and then literally just made nice little circles behind the figures that I wanted to create the portals. Now what's really cool about sparklers is because there's all these bits flying off left and right and all over the place, it creates a really nice little kind of portal image, and you can kind of see there on the camera the image it creates. So just went back and checked, and because I'm using these longer sparklers, it meant that I could get 2 or 3 shots out of one sparkler, so it was kind of making sure that I got the most out of my resources, if you like. But I was really pleased with how they all turned out in the end. And this is the final image that I captured within the camera. Now, there was no post editing or anything like that, and I think it works really well. I think that the light really stands out, and although I think I would have liked to have got the portals a little bit more circular, I'm actually really pleased with how this has worked out. And if you look carefully as well, the dark position, the dark part behind the middle figure is actually me stood there, but because I'm not moving and there's no light on me, I'm actually kind of invisible. So moving on, I did the same technique with a Hot Toys figure, with a Doctor Strange Hot Toys figure. Of course, creating portals, I had to have a go at a Doctor Strange figure, and I wanted to mix it up from the Marvel Legends and try it with a more detailed, slightly larger Hot Toys figure. So it's exactly the same settings, exactly the same process. All I had to do was take my camera back a little bit and zoom out a little bit, just so that I could get the whole of the character and the figure and the portal in the shot. Now, what I would say is make sure that your figure that's in the center is in focus. You want to make sure that the focus on him is completely accurate, and because obviously if you're using the settings on the camera, you're in manual mode anyway, you're going to have to manually use that focus. So I would take it off of autofocus and use a manual focus. But I was really chuffed with how this image turned out. The only difference I did here was I made this image a square image, just because there was a lot of unused area around the figure, but overall pretty cool photo. Now, the last sort of technique I did, the last light painting technique I thought I would try, is using 2 of the Loki figures and using a purple and pink, or purpley pink and a green light. Using the same technique with an open shutter speed and just moving those pink and green lights around to create kind of the look from the show. It was really just an experiment to see whether this would work, and I think I'm going to revisit this technique with the lights at a later date and try something a little bit more detailed and intricate. But just as a test, I wanted to see how it would work with 2 lights, and I think it actually worked out quite well. It creates the desired effect. You get the light trails, because obviously the shutter is open for a longer period of time. You get the light trails, which is really quite cool. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Hope you found this interesting. If you're having a play around with this, then do let me know in the comments how it works out for you. But yeah, there we go. A little bit of light painting for some action figure photography. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon.